They say good fences make good neighbors. But what happens when the fence doesn't stop someone from stealing your electricity? This isn't just a story about a cable and a car. It's about boundaries, power, both literal and personal, and what happens when quiet people are pushed too far. I never thought I'd go to war with my neighbor. But when the current started flowing one way, I knew I had a choice: stay silent or fight back. It started the way most feuds do, with something small, something almost laughable. It was early morning, and I was frying eggs, half listening to a podcast, when I glanced out the window and saw it again, a thick charging cable slithering across my lawn like a black vine. It was plugged straight into my outdoor outlet, and at the other end, Karen Miller's pristine electric car humming softly like it belonged there. She didn't ask. She never had. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. It could have been an accident, a one-time emergency. I didn't want to be that neighbor, the kind who writes angry notes in all caps. But it wasn't a one-time thing. It became a routine. Every morning, she parked by my fence. Every night, she came by after dark. And each month, my electricity bill crept higher. $250 in 1 month was the tipping point. I tried confronting her gently once. She smiled, gave a breezy, just topping off, and went back to her phone. No apology. No offer to reimburse. Just entitlement wrapped in solar-powered smugness. Then one morning, barefoot, with a spatula in hand, I walked out and unplugged her car mid-charge. She looked up from her lawn yoga and blinked like I'd interrupted a sacred ritual. When I told her to stop, she had the audacity to tell me I was being rude, that I should have spoken to her like an adult. I told her the next step was locking the outlet. She didn't like that. Within a week, I received a notice from the Homeowners Association claiming I'd installed unauthorized electrical infrastructure. It was laughable. I knew exactly who filed the complaint. Karen had connections on the HOA board and wasn't afraid to use them. What she didn't know was that I had wildlife cameras set up. Not to spy on neighbors. Originally, they were for the raccoons who liked my compost bin. But they had caught her in the act, night after night, plugging in like my home was a public utility. I compiled the footage, printed a mock invoice, listing every estimated kilowatt hour she'd stolen, and dropped it in her mailbox along with a sticky note-friendly payment plan available. She was at my door less than an hour later, furious. Accused me of harassment, threatened legal action, claimed I was extorting her. I stood there calm as the eggs I'd never gotten to finish that morning, and simply said, "I have the footage, and I have the right to protect my property." She left in a storm of threats and indignation. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A second letter arrived from the HOA accusing me of running a surveillance operation that violated community privacy rules. This time I didn't laugh. I got angry. This was no longer about electricity. It was about power, the kind people think they can take when they believe no one will fight back. So I gave her what she wanted. I spent the weekend building a fake outlet. It looked real, better than real, actually. Clean, weatherproof, flush against the wall. But inside, hollow. No wiring, no connection, just plastic and empty space. I installed it under my porch light, then mounted a GoPro across the yard, hidden in a birdhouse. The next morning, she plugged in. Her car lit up like it was charging. She checked her phone, smiled to herself, and walked off. Watched from the window, half amused, half sick to my stomach. It felt petty. It was petty. But it also felt like the only language she understood. For the next few days, I watched her try different cables, reset her app, even call a technician. She knocked on my door once and asked if I'd had an outage. I smiled and said no. Everything's working fine. I told her, which was technically true. Then came the community meeting. Karen had filed yet another complaint, this time alleging that I had installed faulty equipment that posed a fire hazard to the neighborhood. She said it violated safety codes, that I was endangering lives. I didn't argue. I let her talk. Then I pulled out a flash drive and plugged it into the projector the HOA used for announcements. One by one, the clips played Karen sneaking into my yard at dawn, plugging into my outlet waving like we were friends. Her car's app lighting up next to the fake outlet. Her inspecting the box with increasing panic. There was a long, awkward silence. Then came the final piece: screenshots from her social media. Posts about living green, charging off-grid, being a conscious neighbor. The hypocrisy was too much for even the most neutral board member. Greg, the HOA president, turned to her with a grim expression and handed her a formal notice suspension from her position as HOA secretary for misuse of community authority and breach of neighborly conduct. Karen didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just gathered her papers and walked out with the dignity of someone who realized the game was over. But it wasn't. The next week, she tried to rally support. She set up a community energy awareness booth on her driveway, handed out pamphlets, claimed she was being bullied for trying to share clean energy. But the neighborhood had changed. People had seen the footage. A few even came to me quietly to say they'd had their own run-ins with her: minor things, strange requests, passive-aggressive notes. They were tired of her too. I kept upgrading my deterrence: motion sensors, new fake outlets, even a low-voltage noise device that buzzed whenever someone came too close to the wall. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. Karen grew more frantic. One night she tried to plug into a street lamp. 2 days later, her car was towed. Rumor was she couldn't get it charged anywhere and refused to pay for a new battery. She became a joke, the eco-warrior who stole power and lost everything. And then, quietly, she moved out. No notice, no goodbye. Just a moving truck and a for sale sign that went up one morning. I watched from my porch with a cup of coffee, feeling something that wasn't quite victory. It was relief mostly, but also sadness. Because somewhere under the ego, the politics, the entitlement, Karen had to believe she was doing the right thing. That her vision of the world of fairness and sharing and green living justified crossing boundaries. She wasn't evil, just blind. And that blindness cost her everything. Now, the mornings are quieter. I unplug the cameras, walk barefoot through the grass without worry. Sometimes I catch myself glancing at the fake outlet and smiling. Not out of pride, but because I know that silence, when defended, can be louder than any confrontation. And power, real power, is knowing when to stand your ground.